What is up, everyone? We are back with a new set, MTG Foundations, and we've coming at you with the top 10 best new cards, plus a couple honorable mentions, and uh, they're pretty sweet. I will say that this set has a lot of synergy, very synergy heavy set. So nothing is like too explosively overpowered, but the synergy cards that are there, really, really good. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of tribal decks coming out of this and other, synergy combo type decks that didn't really have enough there in the way of cards that work together. But now that we have foundations, we kind of have missing glue pieces to tie them together a lot. So without further ado, let's get into the list. So, starting off with the honorable mentions. These two cards I think could be potentially very good and will have some impact on standard. First one is Authority of the Consuls. This is a 1 mana enchantment in white, typically goes in a blue-white control deck. Saw a lot of play in older formats, in historic, even in timeless. And it saw some play when it was in standard as well. But basically, um, especially in a aggro heavy meta like we have right now, where mono red is everywhere, and they come in with hasty creatures, and they do a lot of burn damage and just enough to finish you off a lot of times. So making their creature come in tapped slows them down. It also makes them think twice about using the plotted creature. The plotted hasty creature, because if they wait to cast it, then it's going to come in tapped, and they don't get to kind of go off with their combo. So probably they'll have to do less optimized plays, and you also get a life every time they play a creature, which can really offset the burn. So best of 3, definitely a good sideboard card. Best of 1, I think it also could see main deck play because of all the mono red decks out there, until maybe mono red gets pushed out of the meta. All right, we talked about that a while. Let's look at the other honorable mention. We got Rise of the Dark Realms. This is 7 black, so really expensive, 9 mana, but there's some ways we can cheat this out quicker, and it puts all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. This reminds me of the Dreadhorde card that was back in the War of the Spark set, which would bring back all creatures and planeswalkers that you choose, and you lose some life based on what you chose. But this one, you just get them for free, and not planeswalkers, only creatures, but still very powerful effect. Especially, we have some ways where we can get it out in turn 4, so that's potentially very good. But it could also just be a control finisher to get back everything you've killed the entire game. All right, honorable mention, because this one's a little bit harder to pull off, but still a very solid card. All right, let's get into the top 10 cards. And again, remember, synergy heavy deck, so there are plenty of really good synergy cards. I tried to pick the really stand out ones or the standalone good cards. So let's take a look. So first of all, and let me move this around a little bit because it's in the way. Alrighty. And so this is Day of Judgment. Obviously, we all know this one, but 4 mana Wrath of God effect is very solid. We haven't had a just generic 4 mana one. It's standard for a while. It always has some sort of drawback. So this is just pure 4 mana, wipe the board. With the current meta, it's not quite that good, but I would say it's still pretty good. I tend to find that turn 4 is about the last turn you can wipe the board and hope to survive. So I think it's still good, and it would, it works against most decks. Almost all decks have some creatures in there, but definitely not as good as it was back when this first came out. All right, next one up, Elvish Archdruid. So we got a lot of really solid elves in this set, and they're actually like timeless and historic, maybe even legacy level, power level of elves that we got. This being one of the main ones. I don't know if you've ever played historic or timeless, but this card is just a beast in that format. Really, really insane. Must kill, and yeah, very solid card. So 3 mana, pumps your elves, gives you a ton of green mana if you're playing an elf deck, and then you can use that to cast your big guys or pump all your creatures or something like that. So really solid. Looks like we have enough elves in the set to make a good elf deck, so I think this is going to be a very, very strong card. Next one, Kiora the Rising Tide. 2 and a blue for a 3/2. Draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards when it enters. That's all solid. If it's just that's a pretty good creature, but probably not top 10. And then you have Threshold whenever Kiora attacks. If there's 7 or more cards in your graveyard, then you create Scion of the Deep, a legendary 8/8 octopus creature token. So yeah, I think this is a card that's very well rounded. It fits into a lot of decks where you want to kind of draw this card, fill your graveyard up, filter your draw, find your combo pieces, and then it has the payoff that, somewhat late game, mid to late game, you can start making 8/8 creatures if they don't kill it. Very solid. Next one up, Llanowar Elves. We talked about the Elvish Archdruid. Llanowar Elves, another key elf, and this works in more than just elves. This is just the quickest ramp that you can get in any deck. Turn 1, tap for green. Very solid creature, very solid ramp. Most of the time people have to kill it. Otherwise, you're going to get out some advantage. So yeah, just a really solid and strong card that's always seen play in every format. 9 Lives Familiar. I think this card is busted in some way. We'll have to find the deck, but the fact that it's a 3 mana creature that lets you keep sacking it over and over, and it just keeps returning to the battlefield up to 9 times, I believe. That's kind of the whole point. It's a 9 Lives Familiar. So it has the initial 1 life, and you could sack it 8 more times. So if you have some sort of fractal sack or mono black sack, or you just need some target that you can just keep sacking over and over, this is the one. 3 mana is a little bit expensive, but I think the payoff is worth it. So that's why I put it on there. Next one, Scavenging Ooze. 1 and a green for a 2/2, and you pay green, exile target card from a graveyard. If it's a creature card, you put a +1/+1 on this creature and you gain 1 life. I know it doesn't look like much, but this card has always been like way overperforming in every format that it's been available. Honestly, this card, I have some like PTSD from this card because I always like to play the fun combo-y decks where you want to fill your graveyard and reanimate or things like that. And this card just always ruins the fun. They play it on like turn 3, they exile your stuff. And they can just hold up that mana. They don't even have to do it right away and just wait for you to try to use your graveyard and then just exile at the last minute. So just really annoying, and good in most green decks. Stompy, I don't know, Gruul, anything like that. So very solid and very annoying card, and that's why it's in the top 10. All right, next card is Soulstone Sanctuary. We had Faceless Sanctuary, I think it was called. Faceless Haven, that's right, Faceless Haven, which is very similar to this. It was a land you pay. I actually want to say you pay 3 mana, so they kind of made this a bit safer. You pay 3 mana and you got a 4/3 creature with vigilance and all creature types. Um, so this one is a little bit different. It's 4 mana for a 3/3, so weaker. But I still think this is a good card that you would play in your tribal decks because it's all creature types and body's pretty decent. 3/3 on a man land with vigilance. So definitely not too shabby. And again, in a tribal deck, it's a good payoff. So I think foundations, lots of tribal decks. I found myself putting this in almost all my brews that were tribal decks. So yeah, I think it's going to see a lot of play. Next one, Vengeful Blood Witch, 1 and a black for 1/1. This is kind of like a Blood Artist type effect. Blood Artist is a 2 mana 0/1 that whenever a creature dies, the opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is essentially the same thing. It's just a 1/1 instead of a 0/1. And that card was always really good. People always found ways to combo off and make it just do a ton of damage. And so I can't see how this one won't be just as good. One of the big tricks is that, you can have multiple of them on the battlefield. Like if you ever get 2 of them down, this goes crazy because you're just draining everything. If you can have this card and you can have some sort of free sack outlet, that's just the game. The game just ends basically. So this card is good. If it's not good now, it's going to be good later. So I put it in my top 10. All right, next one, Zombify, 3 and a black. We just got a reanimation spell, which was, I believe, 1 white black. It something about moth. I'm terrible with names. I apologize, but that was a good card for reanimation, but it's kind of, you have to play an Orzhov basically because it has both colors. But this is the first one we got in black at 4 mana, maybe ever. I'm assuming this is a reprint, but I haven't seen this in any other format. Like it's not in Timeless, it's not in Historic. So this might just be like a legacy card that they printed in here. But 4 mana reanimation, basically the cheapest you can ever get. And there's no like restrictions, there's no downside. It's just straight up reanimate some creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So expect to see 4 mana Atraxos a lot more, and 4 mana whatever is good, Valgavoth or whatever. Now that they don't have to play Orzhov to get this reanimation. Yeah, pretty solid. All right, last one is the Abyssal Harvester. Another kind of reanimation effect, a little bit different, but and this is also kind of a unique one that I don't think we've really seen before. It's 1 and a black, 3/2, and it has a tap ability where you exile a creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn, and you create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare. And then exile all other nightmare tokens you control. So you can only have 1 active at a time, but most likely that's going to be good enough because you can play some sort of draw, discard cards, in your deck and have this out on turn 3. Turn 4, you discard something, you get a free Atraxa or whatever. Yeah, or Valgavoth or whatever, and the opponent's gonna have to kill your big giant token thing that does something amazing. So you've already got your payoff basically from that, and then they kill it, and you just make another one. And so I don't think that the drawback on this is too much of a drawback, and the effect is quite powerful. Basically, they'll have to kill it as soon as you play it. All right. There is some other cutesy stuff you could potentially do with this where like you kill the opponent's stuff because it doesn't say your graveyard, it just says from a graveyard. So you could also play this in like a removal heavy deck just for extra value. Like you have some cut downs, you have some go for the throats, and Play this on 3. Next turn, uh, even a counter spell. To be honest, you could play this in just Dimir control and get some good value off it. So seems pretty solid. All right, well that is my top 10 list. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and did I miss anything really good? Let me know what you're excited for, what decks you're building, and until next time, have a blessed day and see ya.